we did begin with freedom of religion, and now we've gotten this people repeating something that's not even in the Constitution, which is separation of church and state. And this is what has been really hurting our nation.
Well, we've been drifting. We've been drifting for a while. Yeah. And what's funny about that is it's like the principle of gravity. The principle of gravity never changes. You can get your buddies together and you can talk about how it should be a one way or another and come to consensus it shouldn't be the way it is, but it is the way it is. And that's the way the founding principles of this nation are. They were founded in the Bible. It never changes. Had an interesting conversation in '06 with two businessmen in Israel. I had the privilege of traveling over there. And part of my message was, America is behind you. The media was kind of playing it like we weren't that excited about it, but most Americans were behind Israel. Yeah. I talked to these businessmen and I told them that, and they really rocked my Western mindset. They said, "That's nice, but we're not sure how important that is." Wait a minute, we're the United States of America. They said, "Well, here's the problem. You guys have only been around a couple hundred years, and the way you're going, we're not sure you're going to make it." And I'm standing on cobblestone that's 3,000 to 5,000 years old. They've seen the Romans come and go, the Egyptians come and go, the Persians come and go. And it was a profound moment for me that if we don't get back to the founding of this nation, we're likely to go also. I'd hate to see that. But it's because these principles never change. If you're a student of history at all, you know what brings down a nation, and we're on that course.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are taking the conservative principles of what's in the Bible, really, and twisting them and turning them and to where liberalism just plain old doesn't work, and it winds up hurting a nation, being taxed to death and everything else. What's happening now is not only is religion, being touted as separation of church and state. Now the state's actually trying to come into religion, and we see this with the passing of the hate crimes bill, which I don't think has really come into effect yet, has it?
Well, they've talked about. I've heard a little, scuttlebutt, and they've even the Attorney General's talked about. Well, maybe that the Florida incident would be a hate crime, but it's a big stretch. You got this guy is that shot the young black kid was half Hispanic and even half black now. They found that out. So how can you make this into a black-white race issue? It's just a stretch. But that's what happens when we want to politicize and you have a certain ideology. Anything will fit. We will twist this, and we will get this square peg into that round hole somehow. Yeah. Doesn't fit, though. Yeah.
Well, the hate crimes legislation that I'm worried about is if a pastor was to speak out and say homosexuality is a sin, which that's what the Bible is real clear about, doesn't mean that the pastor doesn't love them and things like that, but the pastor's job is to speak the Word of God. Now that would be considered a crime.
Well, I think we're a little ways off from that, but we're not that far. We can see it when they start assigning things, attitudes, and even fights in school. They assign those to hate, depending on somebody else's ideology. We're not far off, and that's the old trick where you boil them slowly. You never put the crab. You put the crab in the cool water, then you give them a nice bath. And that's kind of what's happening to us.
It was my understanding it got passed, but I'll tell you what, the administration has pushed so many new things in, you can't keep up with it.
It's difficult when you have that many issues going, and I think that's part of the strategy. Sometimes when the conservatives are in there, they'll have a slip up and they'll try to right things. I don't think the Democrats are that interested in it. They just have a slip up and let's have another one that kind of draws attention away. And there's so many going at one time, you don't really know what to focus on. And honestly, they're not apologetic. I think that's a mistake that the conservatives have made. When they've gotten in power, felt like, well, we're going to co-op with these guys and we're just going to bring them along. To me, that's not the right tact, because they're working on your weakness. They want to water down the authority that you've been given by the voters. You've been given the authority by the voters, exercise it.
Yeah. I've had people that I've talked with about the division between the Republicans and Democrats, and I'm not talking about all Republicans, but I'm talking about the true Republicans, the conservative, constitutional believing Republicans, as I am, as you are. But the opposite position that a lot of the Democrats have taken, are completely the opposite. So they're not taking a position of, let's try to work together, but they've taken completely opposite approaches to the Constitution. And how can constitutional believing people work with that when they don't allow you to work with that?
Right. Well, and look at the health care bill jammed down our throat without any really consensus or working together. This is supposed to be, the most transparent presidency ever, and it was absolutely the opposite. So the problem is, you can believe what people do, not so much what they say. I loved what Reagan said. He said, "Trust but verify." And that's what we got to do. When I heard from Nancy Pelosi say, "You've got to vote for this before you can see what's in it," I knew.
Wow.
And people did, because they felt like they would be, and not felt like, they knew they would be punished if they didn't get in lockstep with her. It's ridiculous. Just think of this. I'm going to do a project for you, and I've got this contract written out, but I don't want you to read it. I want you to sign it. Nobody in your right mind in the private sector would ever do that.
Yeah.
They would look at you like, maybe we ought to take you somewhere and get some help for you.
Yeah.
But in the political arena, evidently that's a normal mode of operation.
Well, this is how this administration is being run, and this is how they're getting by with a lot of things they're getting by with, which a lot of things aren't going to take effect till after this election. So the country that we think we're in right now, the policies haven't come into effect, and so we're in for a wild ride unless we can get some of these things turned around.
Well, the damning thing to me, and really the telling thing, I thought it was very interesting, is the president's got caught on that mic that was hot with the Russians. And he wanted to pass on to Putin that, I only got one more election, hang tough, guys, then I'll work with you. That tells me volumes about the man. And he tried to make light of it. Oh, he went to another interview. Oh, is this a hot mic? And he kind of made light of it. Of course, the media laid down for him and tried to cover it as well as possible. Yeah. That's an indictment, honestly. If you don't see that and understand where we are, you need to wake up.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people are making excuses for him. I mean, the whole thing about blaming Bush, and he has to do that right now with the economy and with things the way they are. Now he has to go back and blame Bush, and they're getting by with it with a number of people.
Got a lot of cover running.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the youth that they go to, the college students, they're still young. They're still learning in life. Their whole life has been about, getting through high school and education, and now they're trying to get in college, get a part-time job. They haven't had time to follow the seriousness of politics and the seriousness of what's happening.
That's correct. I had a conversation in '08 with my middle son. He just graduated from OSU, came home, started to work for us. And we had a conversation about that upcoming election. Mm-hmm. And he goes, "Well, I think I'm going to vote for Obama." And
Really?
I said, "Really?" I said, "Now, do you realize he's the most liberal senator in the Senate?" Now, that's saying a lot to begin with. I said, you never want that guy in the presidency, whoever it is, number one. And, his ideology is a giveaway program. He said, "Well, Dad, he said he would do this, said he would do that." And what I realized, he had not been out in the real world enough to realize that these politicians say anything they can to get elected. And it doesn't mean anything. Their character may not be upright to where they'll follow through. But he was convinced because he said it, that sounded good. He painted the utopian picture. Gosh, this is going to be great. Everybody's going to have everything, and he's going to do everything for everybody. And we finally got through enough conversations where we turned that vote. It wasn't enough to turn the election, but at least for us, it was it was interesting. Yeah. Interesting discussion.
Yeah, I bet he comes
because his
comes
professors had said, this is how things are, and global warming is real, and so because of their position of authority, the kids tend to believe them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we really need to, as parents, train our kids and understand that we're going to have to be retraining them. I don't even not want to say retraining them. Understand the world that they're going into and be aware of it. Let them be aware of it and say, when you go off to college, this is the kinds of things you can expect. Here's some great ways you can rebuttal it. And it's common sense, just informing yourself. This other stuff is propaganda that's really easy to get past if you put any effort into it.
And I think a better strategy even than that, I think that's a good beginning strategy, but we need to have conservatives in the universities.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of given that up. And the church itself has given up a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
The church used to do all the educating, and in about the 1900s they said, well, let's let the state do it. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, they fed the poor, and they took care of the homeless, and they had the homes for widows. And, well, let's let the state take care of it. Mm-hmm. So I put some blame back in the lap of the churches. It's time for us to step up and be who we're supposed to be on the planet, and be an influencer instead. Well, you know, God will take care of it. We'll just sit back here and you know, I don't see any of the Bible stories where men didn't have action. They just didn't stay in the cave and pray and pray and pray. There was a point where they did that, very important, but then they came out. And they went into the battlefield and they did an aggressive work on the earth.
Moses cried out to God and said, God, the Red Sea is here and the Egyptians are coming after us. And what did God do? He didn't just spread out the Red Sea. He said, Moses, take your staff, and if you follow my instructions, then. And we need to follow God's instructions. We can't take our country back unless the churches are willing to speak the truth in all arenas, education, politics. And
that's it.
It's beyond me. It's absolutely beyond me how kids can grow up into a system where they're constantly being taught evolution, and you don't hear a peep from the people at church. And you know, I don't expect the pastors to know everything about creation, but there's a lot of good material that there are good teachers at church that should probably be working with the youth.
And the Bible's clear. It says, my people perish not because the world's bad, devil's big, because of lack of knowledge. They haven't afforded themselves education in those areas so they can talk intelligently about it. There's a guy that is retired now for a number of years, but Dr. Chittick out of George Fox, one of the best men that he gave a seminar on creation versus evolution with no particular bent. Just get the facts out. Let's look at the facts. It's tremendous lecture series. Things like that we need to expose ourselves to so we know what's happening. Don't perish for lack of knowledge. Don't perish off the earth because you didn't decide to go find out what the facts were. You decided your opinion came from your Uncle Joe and you didn't really find out for yourself. That's a huge mistake, and that's part of what's happening to us. Why the church isn't on fire is we're taking what is being fed us without doing it, the research ourselves, looking into all these things that are available. Top scientists, climate issues, top scientists, all the issues have top scientists behind them. But if you buy the company line, you're going to be in the dark.
And
not be able to stand and have an intelligent conversation about it.